All right. Good evening, everyone. So glad you could be with us tonight to learn about providing public comments on the APS rate case at the Arizona Corporation Commission. I'm Sandy Barr, and I'm the chapter director for Sierra Club. And also here is Ana Gorla, our energy and public lands coordinator. And she'll be helping with putting links in the chat and also available at the end to help with questions. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. I thought I would just tell you a little bit about myself first. I use she, her pronouns. I live here in Phoenix on Accomal, O'odham, and Peaposh lands. I grew up in northern Michigan on traditional Ottawa lands, but I've been here most of my life. I love the Sonoran Desert, and I've worked for Sierra Club for 25 years and have worked on clean energy and climate for pretty much all of that time. So I thought tonight we could start out with just a little bit of background to center everyone and put everyone on the same plane relative to background on energy and APS and the Corporation Commission, and then we'll talk about the rate case and some specific issues in the rate case and the procedures for making public comment. So hopefully you will feel a lot more comfortable providing public comment at the Corporation Commission. I think it can come across as a bit wonky sometimes, and some people, it can seem a little bit intimidating. I know it was to me when I first went there, because I didn't know what they were talking about. So we're trying to make sure people have a little bit more background and just know that everyone, can take a little bit of time to get familiar with the process there. And so hopefully this will help. This slide is just indicates, some of the various forums where energy decisions are made in the state. As I said, tonight we're going to talk about the Arizona Corporation Commission, but Salt River Project, the legislature, Congress, the governor's office, and cities and counties also engage in energy policy making. And Arizona is somewhat unusual in having an elected body, the Arizona Corporation Commission, that makes decisions about utility rate cases. And in a lot of states, it's called the Public Utilities Commission. And here we call it the Corporation Commission, which I think a lot of people get confused by. And so I think it's important to point out that if people come from another state, it's very similar to a public utilities commission. Here, our commissioners are elected. There are 5 of them. They serve 4-year terms. And this body is in the Arizona Constitution. It's not in statute, so it's like another branch of government, like a 4th branch of government. You have the legislative, the executive, the judicial, and then in Arizona we have the Corporation Commission. And the Corporation Commission is responsible for service and rates that are charged by utilities. It regulates 14 electric utilities. It does not regulate Salt River Project, and that is something that is often confusing for people too. But SRP has kind of a unique structure in Arizona and is not regulated by the Arizona Corporation Commission. And The commission approves or denies all kinds of utility actions and can establish rules for utilities. And that's just the section of the Constitution, Article 15 rather, where the commission authority is established relative to rate making, which is what we're talking about tonight. And because it's in the Constitution, the commission has sole and exclusive rate making power. And what that means is the legislature can't pass legislation that affects the commission's ability to establish rates for regulated utilities. And it's responsible for a bunch of other things as well: securities regulation, pipeline safety, incorporation of businesses, and it regulates small or generally small private water companies, but actually pretty large ones now as well. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the ACC public comment sessions. Generally speaking, there you can comment in two ways, either via the phone or by showing up in person. And for the public comment sessions that that we're talking about, you don't have to register ahead of time. But for other public comment at the ACC, you now have to register the day before. Not for this one, but I just wanted to give you a heads up that for other types of commenting, you'll have to register the day before, or they'll only give you 1 minute of time and at the end, and maybe they won't let you speak at all. So there's the phone number and the passcode, and that does change depending on the type of public comment, but that's the phone number and passcode for this one. And you can also just watch it. You can stream it live if you don't want to speak, or you can watch it, while you're waiting your turn to speak. There is a delay, so you really need to pay attention on the phone if you call in. And then, of course, you can go back and watch after the fact. So like if you gave public comment and you want to see yourself and just kind of check out what other people said, you can go back in the archives and watch that as well. You can set up a request to speak account to make it a little bit easier to sign in to speak at various actions or activities at the Corporation Commission. It's pretty easy. You just go in, register, and enter this basic information. Tell the system you're not a robot and you have an account. And tonight we kind of wanted to focus a bit more on providing in-person public comment. We're really trying to get a good turnout for the upcoming session on August 10th. So to provide in-person comment, you go to 1200 West Washington Street. There, when you just Google, there are a couple of different addresses for the Corporation Commission that come up. 1200 West Washington is the address for where all of the public comment sessions and hearings are held. And you enter from the back of the building, and the front of the building is towards Washington, and that entrance is not a public entrance. It's only allows staff in. So you go to the north side, there is parking there and also across the street. You do have to go through security when you come into the building. It's you don't have to show ID or anything like that, but there is a metal detector, and sometimes they will take a glance into bags, but most of the time they just have you set your bag aside as you go through. This public comment session is before an administrative law judge. It's not the commission directly taking public comment. The administrative law judge is presiding, but there may be commissioners there. A lot of times, especially the closer it gets to an issue going to the commission, they will be there to hear what the public has to say. And again, the upcoming one is August 10th. That's next Thursday. It starts at 10, and they'll go as long as there are people to speak, or 1 p.m. They will have a hard stop at 1 p.m. So if there are still people that haven't spoken at that point, they will close it up, and people will get 3 minutes each to speak. This just gives you a little, if you haven't been to the commission, gives you a little bit of an idea of what it looks like inside the hearing room. Up here is where the commissioners sit. Down here, so usually our staff and such. And this, in this particular public comment session, up here is also where the administrative law judge will be. And there is a lectern here, and that's where you'll go up to provide your comments, introduce yourself, and then give your comments. And yeah, that's just a little bit more of the inside of the hearing room. And then this shot just shows what it looks like in the front. This was a particular news conference that Tinajani Ani did relative to the last APS rate case and promoting funding for just and equitable transition for coal impacted communities, which we'll talk a little bit more about here in a minute. So when you go in to provide public comment, one thing to remember is you don't have to come in as an expert. Most people aren't experts. You're coming in as a member of the public. Perhaps you're an APS ratepayer, but don't go in thinking you need to know everything about everything relative to the rate case, the commission, or any of those issues. Your individual perspective is important. And yeah, even if you only take 30 seconds with your comment, that is better than not commenting. Logistically, you can fill out a paper slip or sign in electronically to provide your public comment. Again, you go up to the lectern, or you can call in, as I mentioned before. It's good to prepare a little bit. I don't think you need to take hours and hours, but I think you'll be a little less nervous, a little more comfortable if you prepare a little bit in advance. I generally, when you have a tight time limit, like 3 minutes, I generally do a run through on my comments, because I tend to always take longer than I think I will. So like if I time myself and I'm right at 3 minutes, I'll probably cut something because I know it'll take longer. And yeah, keep them brief, simple, and to the point, and make sure you say the most important stuff first, just in case you do run long and end up getting cut off. It's good practice to thank the administrative law judge, the person presiding, and if there are any commissioners present, acknowledge them as well and thank them for listening to your comments. All right, and so now let's talk a little bit about the rate case. This APS just had a rate increase year before last, and now they're coming in for another rate increase, and they're proposing a 13.6% increase, which is a pretty big jump, especially for people who are really, you know, barely able to make ends meet as it is. That kind of an increase can really put them over the edge with being able to pay their electric bills. These increases have been coming too often, and we're very concerned about APS continuing to invest dollars in its coal plants and more gas, overall putting more of our ratepayer dollars into fossil fuels when we know that solar plus storage is cheaper, obviously cleaner than these fossil fuel resources. And so one of the things, you know, we're encouraging people to talk about is wanting clean energy, because it's clean, but also because it's cheaper. And then expediting the retirement of the Four Corners power plant instead of investing more money in it. They, you know, have put a lot of money into this outdated coal plant, and every time they do that, it costs ratepayers. We think APS should also increase its investments in energy efficiency. Energy efficiency measures are those measures that help to reduce the amount of electricity that you use, and they can do that with both residential and commercial. It helps people be more comfortable because it helps to keep the temperature more consistent in your home or where you work. And it also reduces customer bills, which is really important. And one more point is it takes the, you know, it helps to shave the peak off those high demand times when everybody's using a lot of electricity. If you're more efficient, you're going to be using a little bit less, and so it can shave off that peak and reduce the need for additional generation. In the APS rate case, it is great if you're an APS ratepayer, but you don't have to be an APS ratepayer to speak. If you are, though, please mention it. And sometimes the administrative law judge will encourage people to say if they're an APS ratepayer or not. And they will usually ask you, or she will usually ask you where you live. If you don't state that at the beginning, you don't have to give your full address, just like, you know, I would say, hi, you know, I'm Sandy Barr. I live in Phoenix and I'm an APS ratepayer. And then I would go on to provide my public comment. In addition to kind of those, you know, logistics of, you know, or those talking points relative to the rate case, it's important that people tell their story. When I think the most compelling public comments are when people really talk about why they care, how something affects them. Specifically, if you are an APS ratepayer, the rate increase will affect you. If you aren't, you're affected by the pollution, including the climate harming pollution that comes from the fossil fuel plants. If you have particular background you want to mention, sometimes people mention, like if they're a teacher or a firefighter or a veteran. At the last or at the comment session in early June, there were a number of veterans who spoke, and they mentioned that they were veterans. Those are the kinds of things that I think help get the attention of commissioners and help bolster your comments. So if you have anything in particular that you think would help to do that, please mention it. You can mention how long you've lived in Arizona, you're lived here your whole life, or even if you're fairly new to Arizona, you can mention that too. But that can sometimes provide a little extra context for your comments. I think if you have them, and I think most people do, relative to fossil fuel generation, coal and gas, and also what is happening with the climate, concerns about health are also compelling. Maybe you have asthma, maybe you know someone with asthma, and how that is affecting your life or their life. I think that can be part of a pretty compelling story. And then, always tell them why you care, why this is important to you personally, and why you want them to take a particular action on it. In addition to providing public comments in person or by calling in, you can submit a letter or a short comment into the docket. The main thing that you need to make sure you have when you submit written comments electronically, especially, but even if you mailed them in, is to include the docket number. Everything at the Corporation Commission is organized by docket numbers. And it sounds, maybe an unfamiliar term. All it means is it's like a big folder, right? That docket is like a big folder, and it contains all of the materials for that particular issue. It will include the filings by the utility, groups that intervene, and your public comments if you submit them to the docket. So this is the docket number for the APS rate case. We have an action kit for this rate case that we can share with you that has all that information in it. And also we can share these slides with you, but just be sure if you submit anything in writing to include that docket number. And I think I already talked about most of this. Note, yeah, just the same as with your oral comments. Note if you're an APS customer or ratepayer, and yeah, what your position is. You can send emails to commissioners as well, and all their contact information is on the commission's website, but I also put it in here. You can call their offices if you have questions about issues. You should, in most cases, get a call back, but they may bounce your question to a staff person as well. All right, I think with that, we're ready to jump into questions, I think I'll just wrap up by saying, again, if you're nervous about speaking at the commission, providing public comment, please know that you're not alone. Everyone is, gets nervous, and it's really compelling and can make a big difference to have significant public comment on these issues, so they know that people care and are paying attention. And so I hope you will take the opportunity to do it. And the saying about speaking up, even if your voice shakes, I think is really important. And there's lots of support for you from our various organizations, Sierra Club, Chispa, Poder Latinx, and others that are working on this rate case. And we're happy to help you with your comments ahead of time and any kind of follow-up. So again, just want to encourage you to go ahead and speak up on this important issue. Thanks so much, and we'll go ahead and move into questions now. And I am going to also stop recording.